Nick Murison and Alonso, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Or should I say welcome back to the podcast? Both of you have been here before.
Indeed. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. You have a different role this time. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I'm now the Chief Information Security Officer at a SaaS company in Norway called Ardoq. So we've been around for about 8 years, and I joined, just almost 2 years ago.
What kind of CISO are you? Are you a selling CISO?
I try not to... I try not to be a selling CISO, but I do help sales and customer success and so on every once in a while when customers want to put a face to the function. So we have customers who, as part of procurement, they at the very least just want to know that we have a security team. So happy to jump on a call and have a chat.
Yeah, I was just kidding. I know that our last podcast was about security development, so you know what you're talking about. You're a great hire for them. And Alonso, what are you up to these days?
Still working in mnemonic and in the GRC department, but the reason we sit here together is because I've been so fortunate in the last couple of years to lead an internal project in mnemonic that we have run, or we have created our own enterprise security architecture framework. And the last version of the framework, the last implementation, we actually have implemented in Ardoq, who we are now partners with.
So enterprise security architecture. Before we get there, what's Ardoq? And what does that have to do with enterprise architecture?
Oh, you want me to do a sales pitch?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, a very sort of topical thing that a lot of customers are asking us about is IT cost management. So if you use an enterprise architecture solution like Ardoq, you might have modeled out all your applications and what technical capabilities they provide and what business capabilities you have in the organization. And how those technical capabilities or applications support those business capabilities. And right now, a lot of companies are looking at how can we spend less money. And so one area that they always look at is IT costs. So using an enterprise architecture solution, you can start narrowing in on things like, why do we have 3 different ticketing systems? And how much are we paying for them? Is there opportunity to consolidate? So it helps you map out the, all kinds of aspects of the organization. So in one particular case, you might want to answer the question, are we spending more money on certain things than we should? And are there opportunities to make life easier for ourselves and reduce costs?
So when I ask a client of mine and I say, hey, can we have an updated network map, an updated network diagram? Is that something that would be in your tool?
Absolutely. I mean, that is another use case that's quite common is, I guess, what we call IT infrastructure management. So, in Ardoq and in other enterprise architecture tools, you have the ability to automatically integrate with solutions like AWS, Azure, and so on. So if you are cloud-based, just to use the cloud as an example, you can essentially suck in the infrastructure map from your cloud provider, your infrastructure provider, and then you can visualize that in your EA tool. And then you can map and overlay and reference, what technology capabilities does that give you? What business functions does that support, and so on. I used to, back in the old days, I used to be a penetration tester, and we always used to run into the situation where, hey, if you give us, a view of your network, then, it really helps us kind of figure out, where should we focus and so on. And they'd give us something that was, a printed out video that was, 2 years out of date. So, a good use of an EA tool is to keep an up-to-date network diagram and infrastructure map so that, it's actually actionable and useful to the organization.
The one source of truth for what you have in your infrastructure.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, ideally. What does that have to do with security?
Actually, everything that you mentioned now, you can just change one word and put security, and it will be the same issues that we have.
Absolutely.
How you justify that you have this security product in place? Why you use this technology vendor here? How you justify those investments? How you are sure that it's not, or you are not using the same, double money in the same kind of technology to achieve the same kind of mitigation control? So basically, we're trying to solve the same issue. That would be this one with how you justify your security investment. But in the process to build this framework, we have built in a layer kind of approach. So we have different layers of the framework that will solve different layers of challenge that we face today. From, for example, how you communicate to management We have what we call the business layer on the top. It's like, okay, let's have some kind of concepts of how we can translate our security IT language to something that business can understand. How you take a risk-based approach. Everyone is talking about, risk-based approach. What means that? How you choose the contours that are more relevant for your risk. How you choose which contours are you going to implement through all those hundreds of standards that are there. And nevertheless, coming back to the last one, how you choose or how you're sure that all the actual technologies and vendors you have in place, they are effective in their work.
So when you're being a selling CISO, do you have any example cases that you've been across so far?
Yeah, I mean, we have some existing customers where they initially purchased a subscription to the solution for their enterprise architects, and I don't know if there was a hallway conversation or a water cooler moment or something, but internally, someone in the security department discovered that, we have this EA tool. It's got a whole bunch of information about the organization, and we are desperately trying to find out all this information about the organization. So some of our customers have security departments where they realize that the situational awareness that they're looking for already exists within the organization. They don't have to buy a separate tool or something like that. There's already one in the organization that is doing a lot of the job that they're looking for. So we've got customers who will, for example, combine the fact that they've got maybe a GRC tool with the fact that they've got a CMDB, so somewhere where they've got all the application and IT infrastructure inventoried. They've got they might have a privacy governance tool or something like that. And those all kind of their own little islands. And where they found that they got a lot of value was by integrating all those. And so having one place where all that information kind of coalesced and merged and became an added, it was sort of the case of 1 + 1 is equal to 3, where now they get even more value out of that data because they can synchronize it across the various sort of domains in the company, and so each domain gets what their gets that added value and visibility from other departments that they were trying desperately to create themselves. So a lot of a use case that we used internally was we dog food our own platform. So we use the platform to map out all our applications and our sort of organizational structures. So we have the ability in our platform to say this application is owned by a given department, so they have budget ownership of it, and so the head of that department is the person who holds the responsibility for risk and budget and so on. And so that was already in the platform, and then I come along as a CISO wanting to know, hey, are we actually doing all the security things around our applications? Well, it sure would be difficult if I then had to spend months finding out, well, who's responsible for which application, and then go chase them down and
mapping
find
it out.
That information was already there, so I could then add to that information to gain the information that I needed.
I think building on that, what I find really relevant here is that you have the information in place, but also you have the connections. How you trace everything together.
Exactly.
Because one of the things that normally you struggle with, how you have this data, you have these people, you have this technology, you have everything, but how they are connected together, how things are, how the value chain is built on, all those things that you can get that information. I'm not going to say out of the box, but at least it's one of the use cases that you connect all that information together. You're able to trace all those value chains. That's a huge, huge benefit.
Yeah.
One immediate use case I was thinking of, and I would assume that you're also focusing on, is that if you're starting on a security journey with a client and they're saying, okay, like where should we invest our money? Where's the most bang for the buck? How would you use this sort of architecture for that use case?
If we start there, what normally we do is that we make call it assessment, a maturity assessment. We use the framework that we want to use, and we try to map where they are today. So let's see which security controls they have in place, which kind of technologies, and so on. Based on that, And based on the risk they are facing and based on the business objectives they have, we can say, okay, you should prioritize in this area here. Is where you are maybe lower, or is where you have the highest risk. So is this, again, this traceability concept. We have borrowed actually that concept from SAFSA. SAFSA is one of the biggest enterprise security architecture frameworks that are out. But the idea of SAFSA, of trace everything together, is something we have taken with us in our framework. We have simplified that one. But the idea is that we can map everything. So actually we can answer that question. Based on your business objectives, on your risk, should prioritize on this specific security controls because they will minimize or at least mitigate the risk in a better way than maybe using in a different way, in a different place.
So you're working things in a prioritized manner then? Yeah.
Eventually, that's what risk-based means.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, Alonso. I mean, that's essentially exactly what we did when I came in to start up the security department in Ardoq. I mean, we had security in Ardoq already, spread out in the organization, but we wanted to formalize an actual department. We wanted to aim for ISO 27001 certification. So first thing I said we should do is get a gap analysis or maturity assessment. So then we know, okay, what do we need to work on in what priority? And so, starting that kind of security journey with some sort of assessment is, to me, makes perfect sense.
Oh, tell us a little bit more of that in reality. How was that journey?
It was a challenge, but it was actually a lot easier than I expected. So, a lot of hard work had been put into, especially the way that engineering and product in Ardoq approach security. So the rigor and sort of maturity of the security activities in engineering was really encouraging to see. And so the main part that we sort of had to address as part of preparing for ISO was now let's formalize stuff. So a lot of things were working, a lot of things were happening as part of the culture, but we needed that formalization of policy, documentation, exactly, and as many places as possible. We found ways of not creating a document, but rather relying on the fact that we had a number of systems that were automating or partially automating parts of things like change management, risk assessment, and so on, and just leveraging the fact that those platforms or those solutions can represent the documentation that we needed. So
I guess that has been a quite a big struggle to make the auditors understand that you can do it in that way, because the auditors, I guess, they still don't understand everything about infrastructure as code and things like that, and they will want to see some evidence that they have in the checklist, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it sort of depends on the auditing firm and the auditors, but I would say like a lot of auditors that I've spoken to still do love Excel. They do love a spreadsheet. So we did have a slightly a fun situation in a way. So we not only are we ISO certified now, ISO 27001 certified, but we also do annual SOC 2 Type 2 audits. And so our SOC 2 auditors are fantastic. They are very forward leaning. They understand, like, we have a platform where they can come in and sort of project manage and audit through. But one thing that they sent us was an Excel spreadsheet to fill out, and saying, hey, can you fill out, they sent it to our VP of engineering, saying, hey, can you fill out, can you make a list of all the changes that you made to production? And we do somewhere between 10 and 20 changes to production every day. And this is a year, like 12-month audit span. So we didn't fill out the Excel spreadsheet. We pointed them to the fact that we'd already automatically collected evidence in the GRC tool that integrated with GitHub, so that all our changes were already automatically visible in the audit platform. So which worked fantastically, because it presented it to them in a way that the auditors could understand, and it meant way less manual work for us. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that more auditors will kind of take that approach in the future to be open to looking at underlying systems, or at least not insisting on Excel.
That's the reality today. That's how every cloud-based company is doing it. So you cannot come back to the old change management board, approving changes, and they have to go that way.
You spoke at an ISAC event recently.
Yes.
What was that? What was your topic there again?
What was the title? I believe it was something like Building Trust in SaaS. So I wanted to talk about not just, when I say building trust in SaaS, I mean two things. I mean building trust with customers, with SaaS customers, so that they feel comfortable, making us or letting us, store and process what they consider to be valuable information about their organization in our platform, but also building trust internally in a SaaS company. So, starting up a security function in a fairly well-oiled machine, where words like CISO are usually associated with bad stuff. That was a challenge in itself, and so jumping onto the existing culture and embracing that culture and seeing how can we get the security benefits without fundamentally breaking anything in the organization. That was the fun part and the big challenge. And so I've had developers come to me and say, there are a couple of people that are really worried about getting hired in this organization, and one of them was the CISO, because they've been they have war stories from previous companies where they worked, and security is the guy that comes and says no, and that doesn't get us anywhere. We can't the security function can't be the function that just says no. We have to be we have to play along with the culture, we have to embrace the culture, and we have to be part of the culture.
What does enterprise security architecture have to do with that? There is a connection there, correct?
There is. I mean, I guess to Alonso's point, the value from enterprise architecture and enterprise security architecture is being able to trace that, get that visibility from top to bottom. So, management and board level will have certain priorities, and they want to steer the company, the organization in certain directions. They will have certain priorities. And there will be certain risks, and usually when I'm talking to the board or the executive management team, it's about risk, and so they want to know, are we managing risk correctly and well enough? And so we need to be able to trace what we are doing back to risk management, and so enterprise security architecture gives us sort of that framework, that capability to say, well, we're doing this because of this risk, which means which could have this impact. And the way we're mitigating that risk is through these business capabilities or technology capabilities, which is why we have, which is why, for example, we're spending a bunch of money on tools, or which is why we get someone to do a pen test every year.
Right.
You see, what you are doing there is you are building your script for your storytelling. So you are, as a CISO, as a modern CISO like Nick is, not this all no, you have to have these storytelling skills also, because when you're talking to management, when you're talking to people that doesn't understand security, you need to make it for them in a way that they manage to understand what they actually are trying to communicate, and have this traceability through all the stack is giving you this script that you can actually translate to a good story.
It's it gives you something to have a conversation around, I guess, and it's the single source of truth, as you said earlier. And I would also assume that as a CISO, you don't want to tell people no, but it's nice to understand how they're doing things. You could say, I understand we're doing it this. I assume because it's for that reason. Can we maybe add this to that? And it's all so you could see how they're working, and then add in security without being so intrusive and changing the way they're doing things, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think starting with why, just to quote Simon Sinek, is sort of one of the inspirations for my approach, at least, is build as Alonso said, build a story, and don't just say, hey, we're going to do this now, or you should do this. There has to be a reason behind it. There has to be, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the risk we're trying to mitigate? Why are we trying to do this? And one thing I've learned internally, for example, one of the first things I tried to do was I said, I think we need this kind of tool. So I set up a call with a company to try and position to demonstrate a certain security tool to us, and I hadn't done my homework yet because I hadn't realized that although we didn't have that tool, we already had the capability internally. And so the engineering team quite rightfully said to me, start with the problem. tell us what the problem is, and then let's talk about solutions. So, so that was
welcome.
Exactly, that was a very valid point, which is especially in a company like Ardoq, we have a lot of very, very smart people who've already thought through a lot of problems. So they might have already thought through the problem. So I shouldn't come and force a solution on them without first exploring what we already have and if anyone else has already addressed the problem in some way already.
It's much easier if everybody agrees there is a problem, and then yeah.
But also that connects with the new way of thinking of a CISO. You are not owning all the risk. The risk is owning the different teams that they own the different solutions. Yeah. So you are there to help them to understand what are those risks.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the way, or that's the change that we see now in mature companies with mature CISOs, is helping the organization to take decisions independently where the actually risk resides.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me 15 years ago if I'd ever want to be a CISO, I would have said no. I mean, the joke then, and I think a joke still now in a lot of industries, is a CISO is a revolving door role, because it's the person you blame if something goes wrong. But in more mature companies, we see, as Alonso said, the concept of risk ownership is not something you just push on this sort of scapegoat role. It's something that the whole organization owns, and each department has to own their risk. Yeah.
Well, I guess a CISO could be a revolving door role, and it'd be fine if they were to come in, set this up like I don't know what to say, buy Ardoq and set it up, and then implement some controls and leave. But if that was to happen, right, they come in, set up this sort of architecture, get some controls together that actually make sense. When they did leave, it would make the job 10 times easier for the person coming afterwards, and you'd always have something to work around and have like a fundamental foundation. Or
yeah, I would say so. One thing I would stress though is that just because you've implemented an EA tool or an enterprise security architecture sort of framework doesn't mean that the story's done. It is a living capability that has to be nurtured and has to be maintained. So you can't just do it once and then let it be. It has to be, which is why we, I like integrations and APIs, and I'm a CISO, but so I shouldn't be writing code. But every once in a while, I write some code for integrating. This system over here has some really interesting data. It'd be really good if it was in our EA platform, because they would help us shed light on something. So the fact that they're open APIs that we can plug together and get data across systems means that enterprise architecture and enterprise security architecture information is kept up to date.
How important is that for you, or is this for you in your role today as a CISO?
Tremendously important. I was actually kind of surprised at how important it's become. I think in the old days, it would probably be a lot of Excel spreadsheets that would need to be manually maintained. So the month before an audit would probably be a mad scramble to make sure that we had Excel files that were up to date and accurate. And now it's more a case of we're still feeding that data into the platform, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's still up to date. Yep. Okay.
But that is how it is, like within a lot of companies today, right? Excel's chaotic before audits and everything's in Excel, and hopefully it's up to date.
I would say so. Yeah.
Excel is the most used GRC tool in the market. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you use your time on?
Continuous improvement. We are okay. Fine. We have SOC 2 and we've got ISO, and we're listed in the Cloud Security Alliance Star Registry. Great. But those need to be maintained. So we're constantly monitoring our risk. We're constantly looking at how can we build better controls or develop the controls that we have. Are there smarter ways of doing stuff that we already do? So some of the stuff that we've done in the past has been heavy, been manual, and then someone's had a bright idea of, well, if we do it this way, it's much more lean. It fits much better into how we otherwise work, and so on. So it's looking for those continuous improvements that make sense to us.
So for those out there to listen to this and working with security and think it's interesting, first of all, they can look at Ardoq. They can look at mnemonic enterprise security architecture.
We
if
call
that's
it
what it's
MESA.
called. MESA, right? MESA. Who should they bring to the meeting to make it easier for them to actually get some sort of internal project going?
So this is one of those areas where I think it's really interesting for security and enterprise architecture to team up. I've spoken to some enterprise architects who sort of have the same struggles as security departments. It's hard for them to, in some organizations, it's hard for them to show the value that they can bring to the executive management team and to the board. And security has that exact same challenge. Security has traditionally been seen as the guys who say no and say we need lots of money because reasons, you don't really know what the value is there. Security as an enabler has been something that we talked about for 20 years, and I think it's finally happening. And I think EA is having similar struggles where EA is an enabler if it's allowed to be an enabler. And so those two teams teaming up to talk about enterprise architecture and enterprise security architecture, I think they have a lot of common ground and a lot of things that they can gain from collaborating.
And nevertheless, they give you a much more wide perspective of the company, because you don't need to be that silo separated. That you get the same benefits, you get the same data you're using for actually improve that communication that you have with the company. You're putting structure in all the data and all the information you have.
And I could definitely see it being much easier for management to understand what we're actually trying. Why do we want to buy this or that? So why do we want to change these things? It's a much easier conversation to actually have when you actually have evidence in front of you, and it's also in a visual manner. My advice to if in enterprise architecture or if you're in the security department, make friends with the others, because I think there's a lot of common ground. Make friends with the others. Ardoq and beer then.
Sure.
Perfect.
And if you want to hear more about mnemonic enterprise security architecture, yes, visit the website.
Yes. Cool. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.